So this homework 15 is to cover the chi-square test and the F test we just covered. It's relatively short here. We only have less than 10 questions. Okay, so we will go over this relatively quick. Question number 1. In a goodness of fit test, between one observed frequency distribution and one expected frequency distribution, the degree of freedom are equal to the number of categories minus 2. Everybody, if you remember, this is the example lecture notes, right? We are asking if consumers have particular preference in terms of like different flavor, right? Strawberry, apple, juice, like those ones, right? The degree of freedom is equal to number of groups minus 1, not minus 2. Question number 2. In a chi-square goodness of fit test, when there is a close agreement between the observed frequency and the expected frequency, the chi-square test value will be small. I think we mentioned that previously in the previous homework. I can mention this one more time here. Remember the chi-square test, that's the formula, right? It's equal to the summation of OI minus EI bracket square divided by EI. So what's OI? That's observed number, observed frequency. EI, that's expected frequency. And then the difference and then square, right? So now they are saying if there's a close agreement between OI and EI, means the difference will be very small. The difference is, if the difference is very small, then square of that will be also small, right? So this whole piece will be small. In other words, when you do the summation, will also be small. So that's the reason the chi-square test value will be small. The answer is B. That's right. Number 3, find out the area to the right of 5.578 under the chi-square distribution with degree of freedom 11. Everybody, you do have to use that chi-square distribution table, the one page. We mentioned that last time. I'm not going to cover that here. ANOVA is abbreviation for analysis of variance. Easy. Question number 5. F test can be used to compare the variance of 2 or more means. That's right, right? 3 or more. 3 or more means. 3 or more average. Remember, we are trying to compare like 3 groups of people, right? So the group of people by doing the medication or doing the diet or doing the, I forget the other case, right? 3 groups of people, right? We are trying to see that. The value of F distribution can be negative. That's false. Everybody, you can only get a positive value, right? Because it's just the ratio of S1 squared divided by S2 squared. How can you get a negative, right? Number 7, everybody, that's a very important question. A researcher is comparing 4 groups of tests to see if they have the same average. Altogether, there are 64 data values. The degree of freedom for between, everybody, degree of freedom for the within group, everybody, what's the formula we are using, right? Let me share with you the one that we just mentioned here, right? That's the one, right? So when we say the degree of freedom, B for between, right? Degree of freedom between. When we degree of freedom between is how many groups minus 1, right? How many groups? In this case here is degree of freedom B is numerator, right? Is number of groups minus 1. Everybody, you can write down here or you can write down this on your notes here. Degree of freedom for between is equal to number of groups minus 1. You can write down that, right? Now that is For groups -1, you got 3. So the answer is either A or D, because both of degree of freedom B equal to 3. Now, what's the degree of freedom for the within, right? W for within. If you remember this formula here, within each group, right, is equal to like 5 minus 1 plus 5 minus 1 plus 5 minus 1. That's one case, one way to do that. Another way is equal to, altogether you have 15 data points here, minus 3 groups. So you got 12. Similarly, how many total data points here? 64 data points, minus 4 groups. So it's 60. The answer is A, everybody. So you can write down the degree of freedom for within is equal to number of data points minus number of groups. So you can write down that here. Hopefully it's clear.